IMF this morning. We know the IMF has been really busy after the Article 4 that was released, after the visit that the staff level visit that was done. So one of the concerns that the IMF has raised concerning Nigeria is the lack of robust social safety net to protect poor Nigerians. Seems we cannot have enough of this conversation. So while I had this conversation last week with the former director of Give Nigeria, I believe, it seemed there's a need to also touch on this again after that article, and I'm sure you've heard the conversations that have been going on around that. The fund said that although Nigeria has made progress with recent reforms, poverty and food insecurity remain widespread, and there's absence of proper social buffer that poses a risk to inclusive growth. We have the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of BIC Consultancy Services, Dr. Boniface Chizea. Dr. Chizea, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Ini, for having me.
Yeah, so I guess this is just reiteration by the IMF, because even at the beginning of the reforms, the removal of subsidy, the merging of the currency FX rate, they had warned and said that there should be social safety programs even before those reforms came on board. So I guess this is just IMF reminding Nigerian governments that you still need those safety nets if the impact of your reforms would be appreciated.
Well, I think that safety nets, we're just looking at it. I think if you look at it, what's important for us as a country is that we have to be a bit pro-poor. This is what's going to be very important. If you look at, talking of transfers, to the poor and the vulnerable, now that's going to be massive. What's the population of Nigeria that has been designated as poor? It's about 42%. And you have a population of about 200 million people and counting. Now, so where are you going to get the money from to do these transfers? And even when you make the transfers, to a large extent, it's like giving somebody a fish. We should try and teach people how to fish. That is more sustainable. So my concern is that, yes, these things, it's very easy to just read them off glibly, but then when it comes to implementation, you see, we are strapped. They've also told us that we have difficulties with challenge in terms of our revenue flows. So where are you going to get the money to begin to do those transfers? And besides the fact that we don't even seem to have the system in place, to even effect the transfer. Our population, what's our population, and so on and so forth. Now, the poor who are deserving of this, where are they in this country? And when they're going to implement them, you find that all sorts of considerations will be taken on board. And then again, cleavages and so on, and they find that it's been done in some parts of the country, and more than in some other parts of the country. So there are lots of issues about transfers. And then we tried it in the past. We tried it under the past administration. And there were lots of issues about transparency. So it's a difficult area to go. I think that what Nigeria needed to do, we have the sizable proportion of poor people in this country, is to adopt a pro-poor budgeting. And I mean, they talked about budget implementation as part of their recommendation. I didn't hear that. They talked about the system we have to put in place, assumptions, and the expenditure, transparency, and then the budget implementation. Talked about that, but they didn't talk about really the content of the budget. So if you're doing your budget and you want to address the poor, then you better target, those who are vulnerable. You target education, target health, target housing. That's more sustainable. So, but I think so the challenge. So, I mean, government is going to transfers and so on. Besides the shared difficulties, we don't know where those people are. We try to do that on the immediate past regime, and there are also complaints. The money were being diverted, the money to market women and so on and so forth. But my challenge is that we are challenged for revenues, and they themselves have said so that we should try and find a way to improve our revenue flows, which is quite a deal. I would expect that. The tax reforms, when they're fully agreed and are being implemented, that they might help us in that direction. Because really, taxation should fund your recurrent expenditure, which hasn't been the case in this country. our tax to GDP ratio, has not been competitive. So if you look at our tax to GDP ratio and you look at neighboring countries, at some point in time the ratio was about 7-8%. We will have to try and up that substantially. So we'd expect that would happen. So that's my initial take on this. I think that we will emphasize that, and we made these recommendations, and would not, as far as I'm concerned, we would not thought these recommendations through properly, because we are challenged. So we are at 42% of 200 million people. How much are you going to transfer?
All right, Dr. Chizea.
Our pension for diversion. So okay.
All right, Dr. Chizea, I think what I hear you say, correct me if I'm wrong, that if the safety nets or the safety net programs that Nigeria should be facing should be inculcated into the budget. So, yes. So you have things like the health spending, education, and housing, and you do not think that perhaps there's a need for the humanitarian ministry because of the experience we've had in handling the humanitarian issues before now? Is that what you're saying?
No, my concern is about the emphasis. I think we're trying to overemphasize it, So they made it, like a key aspect of their recommendations. I know they talked about they talked about growth and they talked about monetary policy. But then there seems to, this has grabbed the headlines. That's my concern. So you can do that. But what I'm saying is that, it's really not an effective, given our penchant, for not having a good record of implementing policies. I can't see it being as effective as it's been made to look, if you go by their recommendation. That's exactly the point I'm trying to make. I'm not saying that you can do transfers, but we have issues. Do we have a register? But expect that with this administration, and we are embracing digitalization, information, and so on and so forth. Maybe we're going to get there. But I think that we're really challenged. I don't want to see us emphasizing it as it's being done. So I prefer that we'll talk about other more important things. Let's talk about growth. Let's make our growth inclusive. So growth, growth. In fact, we've not had growth since 2013 to just before this time. So they put our growth at about 3.4. Nigerian Bureau of Statistics is about 2.9. Let's have growth that is based on real sector, not growth that is based on services. When the growth is based on real sector, you are talking of manufacturing, you're talking of industry, you're talking of construction and so on and so forth. We have employment. Employment will come on. So those are the things. When people are employed, give them job. That's what I alluded to by saying that we don't want to give people a fish. We want to teach them, how to fish. So I think that's exactly what I'm saying. That there are so many ways, trying to skin a cat. And I think that to not begin to just look for money, to begin to transfer, it's going to be quite substantial. And we don't call themselves spot on. They're saying that we are challenging revenue flows and so on and so forth. So that's just the point I'm trying to make. So I am not going to say that we shouldn't think of the poor and think of transfers and so on and so forth. But I shouldn't grab the headlines.
So how would you advise, for instance, that this is being handled? I mean, even our register, that has its own story on its own. I don't think there's a register now that everybody can clearly, state that this has all the number of the poor and all of that. So that's on the one hand, because we need data in whatever we're going to do. Today's world is driven by data. That's it. Now, but you say you don't really support the transfer. So what should the safety net program look like from your perspective? What are the low-hanging fruit? Apart from increasing spending on health and education and housing, what are those low-hanging fruit that you think can be adopted to meet this recommendation of IMF?
Well, I think that speaking of low-hanging fruits, they should try and improve environment. If you ask me, and let's improve infrastructure. Let's have power supply. Sometimes we adopt a wrong focus. When we try to think of solutions, to our problems. Do you know what magic it will do to have a steady power supply in this country? What magic? Even to the low, the poor, and the downtrodden. The cost of generating alternative power supply in this environment it's unbelievable. And we don't seem to appreciate, the full implications of that. And so why can't we have steady power supply? Recently, we have tariff structures and so on and so forth, and bills are being increased. And in some areas, an area is supposed to be getting about 24 hours supply a day. Recently, I go about 2 days without any power in my environment. I know what I spend in part of solar and so on, generator, and so on. I know how much I spend, in trying to keep the base, keep power going in my place. So I think there are so many things we can do that if we did them, they also emphasize the issue of infrastructure. I think that power is something that we have to take seriously on board. The rate of grid collapse environment is totally unacceptable. It collapses and everywhere is thrown into utter darkness. I think that's one issue we done about that. So the whole thing is about challenge. You can't even go to corruption. You go to corruption is massive in this environment. So nothing happens with that. We want to renovate a conference center. You spend $39 billion. You want to put in CCTV in the State House, and you spend $24 billion. Hey, what's happening here? I think that we need to, and this is why we're looking for people who have clean credentials, clean records. People who have not been stealing money in the past. To come on board. So it's important. Those are just issues. But so my overall take in this is that yes, you can try and do a few things, but we need to be careful about doing that because, like we did observe here, we don't even have a register that we can speak to its integrity. We don't have it. So we had house of complaints in the last regime when they tried to introduce some money to get women and so on and so forth. I don't know how much you got out of that. If you ask me, all that was driven by the need able to, gain some political capital. Not really meant to alleviate poverty. So I think that really, as one of the things we can do. Insecurity in this land is something else. So why can't we do something about it? Why can't we tackle it? So there are a lot of gaps. So I look at all those things. Look, UNESCO tells us what percentage of our budget we should put in education. Tell you what you put in health. We're not being able to do that. So I think that when you look at it, I don't want to sound too pessimistic, but I think that the challenges are enormous. So, but I think that we sound high in trying to talk about transfers, and then those who are not well grounded, they just think that once you begin to transfer monies, let them go and ask themselves, where are we going to budget from? Who have it in the budget? You have the expenditures all over the place that are not even being budgeted for. And they talk about a budget system, so also a budget included in this country. We are talking about capital expenditure. 2014, we are still trying to implement, 2024. We still not implement capital expenditure to the end of 2025. Because we have a budget system that is a rolling plan. We had it here in this country before, 3-year rolling plan. Why are we not implementing it? And because that capital budgets would invariably will take more than 1 year to implement. But we're not doing anything the way we should do it because we don't pick people in charge who have requisite expertise to have things done. So I think that we should need to really, as we are beginning to talk about 2027, make sure that we're going to get things right. Otherwise, we'll continue to languish at the bottom of the development ladder.
All right, Dr. Boniface Chizea, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of BIC Consultancy Services. Thank you so much for your views and your time this morning.
Thank you, Yini, for having me. Thank you.